What's up, folks? This is Acid Roots. I'm going to review Alice in Chains' Facelift. So, I've been hearing Man in the Box on the radio, on rock radio, and it kind of got me curious about some more records that feature Lane Staley. Now, critic reviews have said that Dirt was the best album, but I almost thought that, Facelift had to be decent, and I wanted to try it out a little bit more. I had gotten Jar of Flies, but I didn't realize it was an acoustic album. I thought it was going to be similar to Dirt, and I didn't know what to expect from it. But I mean, I'd probably say now I just need to listen to it more. But Dirt is a pretty solid record, and I wanted to see what they were doing before they completely hit mainstream. This has some of their earlier hits with Sea of Sorrow and then Man in the Box, but they really only got two charting singles, and I think MTV kind of helped them out. The music video got plays, they had done a bunch of stuff, and you gotta keep in mind this was back in the VHS days, so that was before, internet and all these different things that could help their album so much easier. So 1990, 1991, the album took off in the summer of 91 between Nirvana's Nevermind, this record, and then a year later in 92, Dirt came out. That sort of stuff had happened, but I almost wanted to kind of see, exactly how the record played out. Now, in my opinion, Man in the Box is the best song on this album. And, it goes to show me looking at the Spotify plays how that song has, virtually 90 million plays compared to the second strongest only having about 8 million. And, it hits close to home. I would say, the first five songs that you hear seem to be, they were trying to say these are the songs to go to first, but at the same time, yeah, so Sea of Sorrow is basically the second most popular in terms of radio spins, but I didn't quite enjoy the song as much as, maybe old school fans of the group did. I mean, you have to keep in mind how much plays Man in the Box got, and then saying, well, we need a follow-up song, but we didn't know which one. So Sea of Sorrow was the one, but I think it's just going to take some time for it to grow on me. When I reviewed Cypress Hill's debut album, I basically gave that like a 1 or 2 out of 10. I later wound up buying the album and realizing it was a lot better, and that is exactly how I feel with this Alice in Chains project. Is a lot of the records, especially in the second half, just don't quite reach me. And so that's like the main thing. I mean, Man in the Box is an easy hit, and so is We Die Young, but, past like the first half of the album, it just has been difficult. So obviously, I wanted to still review this, but I kind of am taking it kind of, suspect just to see what's going to happen. So I'll talk about a few of the singles. Man in the Box wasn't the first single, it was the one that got the radio spins. It's the highest charting song on here, and in terms of like streaming, it's probably the most popular song. But the second single, if you don't count the EP that came out before this, was Bleed the Freak, which didn't chart, but I do actually enjoy that one. Between Bleed the Freak and I Can't Remember, these are actually pretty heavy songs, and so is Put You Down and a couple other ones, but I think Bleed the Freak is kind of like almost like a cross between Man in the Box and Sea of Sorrow. So it's not, I mean, Lane Staley is a pretty catchy vocalist. I mean, that's the thing, is even in the songs that are not singles, he still sings pretty melodic, and it's easy enough to sing along with them. But the problem with it is the songs just somehow lack like the radio play that would probably work for it. So I think they knew, and really since this was their debut project, it's hard to get too like out of sorts about it, just because that they may not have even been sure how much of the album at all was going to chart. That was just kind of the thing, them structuring and trying to find, okay, well, which record is the ones to go with. I mean, I don't think that they were scrambling, but it's still, I mean, it really does feel more intended for hardcore listening. And so, the ones that I was looking for kind of in terms of like Dirt, which, has songs like Wood and Them Bones and Angry Chair and Rooster, and I think there's one other single off that album, but Down in a Hole, I think it was. But this album did not quite do that. But because it was their debut, you can't really have like this better, completely blow me away type feeling. But Lane Staley definitely did. I was trying to listen to Jerry Cantrell a little bit. I wanted to, they say he did the backing vocals. I wanted to see and be able to hear him on that, but you know, I don't know his voice that well, so I'd have to kind of mess with it more. But yeah, so Man in the Box, best song. Bleed the Freak is, another nice one. I Can't Remember, which, wasn't released as a single, but that's a pretty heavy song. And I would, a lot of these songs are just, I mean, they're really spacey in terms of that. They feel like they're just listening sessions where you just kind of sit back more so than, or just, I mean, it just really feels more like a marathon session more so than just radio play. I mean, basically like a song like Sea of Sorrow, there's a shorter version of the song that was intended for radio. And that's kind of how a lot of it goes, is some of these just kind of sprawl out more so than, are just made for radio, like We Die Young and Man in the Box. I mean, both of those are chopped up and ready to go, but Metallica kind of does this too. I mean, they'll have, longer songs and more just kind of in the atmosphere, kind of going along with it. But I was trying to find like the next hit after Man in the Box, because it just was strange to me that was, I hear that song all the time on the radio, but I don't really hear hardly any other records. I mean, like, I hear Dirt often enough. I hear plenty of those records, but this one, it just is kind of relative, and that was curious to me. But I guess, looking back, it's not so much that this record is horrid, it just didn't have like the radio quite polished out. So that was kind of where I was at with this. There are records I enjoy off of this, but it just is not, in abundance. So I would probably have to say, because of that, I would probably give this album like a 4.5 out of 10. The second half of the album doesn't stand out too much. I'd say maybe Put You Down would be one of the better songs out of the second half. But, the songs I recommend would be We Die Young, Man in the Box, Bleed the Freak, and I Can't Remember. And then a song I was kind of on the fence about was Sea of Sorrow. I mean, that's probably the second most recognizable song, but it is longer on the album. So you're not getting the radio edit of it, and it kind of goes, I mean, it's almost a 6-minute song. So, I mean, just in terms of, I just want to listen to it and see, okay, this is the memorable song. You kind of have to vibe with it a little bit better, and that's just kind of the situation. But, Man in the Box is ready to go. Bleed the Freak's ready to go. So those are just some of the ones. But the social score I would give like, a 3 out of 10, just because Man in the Box is like the only one that seems to have like the star power. I mean, it's good enough to the point where, you could buy the album for it, but, for newcomers or folks that are not, completely familiar with rock, I would almost say it's kind of like, well, where's like the breadwinners and that sort of thing. That is kind of almost where I came from with that. But so, I mean, this album charts low, but I do think, I mean, I'm on the verge of saying, I'm going to go out and get this project. And that's just kind of the main thing about that. But I just don't know how much taste I'm going to have for it months down the road, saying, well, how many of these records do I continue to listen to? Or am I just going to Man in the Box? Because Cypress Hill, like the album I was saying, that grew on me, the first one, because I scored that low, but it grew on me later, and I'm hoping that because I didn't entirely like this album, maybe it would in turn grow on me as time went on. I mean, there's some records that happens, like the Beastie Boys that I reviewed a few years ago is another one that kind of did that. But I mean, it just is almost blasphemy not to own Alice in Chains albums. I mean, you got to do it. So it just the whole damn thing is the problem with it is the Man in the Box song is so good, and there just isn't quite a follow up single that's as good as that. I mean, Dirt is the one that has the is chock full of hits, but this is just more full of album cuts, or in some cases not even that. So, I mean, Sea of Sorrow, I'm just not quite sold on that. So, but yeah, I give this album 4.5 out of 10 and 3 social.